So, I've made a bit of a name for myself as an Epic Game Store hater. You could even say I'm an Epic Game Store hater. And I feel like I've made my reasoning on that very clear. I've made several videos about the Epic Game Store, and I also just take every opportunity I can to throw some extra shade at Tim Sweeney because he's a complete child who has absolutely no understanding of the PC gaming marketplace and who actively sabotages the release of games that he had nothing to do with because see above point about him being a child with no understanding of how the PC games marketplace works. But something interesting happened the other day where I was tagged in a very long thread by someone named @McGuffies on Twitter. And I want to read through this thread. I want to break it down. I want to tear it apart piece by piece, not just because I disagree with it, because there are many wrong points with it. The point of this thread is to try to explain why Epic Game Store is, at the very least, justified in their practice of third-party exclusive games, and how Steam really is a monopoly and a bad actor in the PC gaming space, or at least that seems to be the point of that seems to be their thesis. And normally I wouldn't entertain such things here, but I wanted to talk about this thread specifically because down here near the end of it, OP writes, and I quote, "This is something that YouTubers like Joe from Seattle don't understand. They don't ever mention the main reason why PC gamers stick to Steam in the first place because this is inconvenient for them, because this means they have to acknowledge that games are a main reason. Joe from Seattle also attacks folks who he calls Epic fanboys for saying that Steam is a monopoly, says that Steam is not a monopoly, but doesn't mention that PC games released on Steam are the main reason why PC gamers stick to it, and a lawsuit regarding monopolistic practices. If anyone who is reading this, including you, @Joe from Seattle, while I understand the criticism of Epic Game Store exclusivity back then, a lot of games on PC only being available to buy on Steam makes it more understandable why Epic Games would want to go with exclusivity deals. You can't just rely on features alone to carry your storefront." So you know what? I'll bite. I'll read this thread. I will read your points defending the Epic Game Store and defending Epic Games' practices, because apparently I just don't understand these things. Normally I wouldn't entertain the ramblings of some random person on Twitter, but when you mention me by name and mischaracterize me like this, say I don't understand why I say the things I say, especially when you're going to say some absolute nonsense in this thread, that's when we start to have issues. So pour yourself a cup of coffee here to sip with your sipper, and we're going to read this thread from an Epic Games defender who wants to explain why Steam is just the worst. And people like me, gosh, we just don't understand. And before we get started, I at least want to extend an olive branch here. This is me talking to OP directly right here, @McGuffies. I genuinely appreciate this. I genuinely appreciate a very lengthy, very thought out response to the things that I say. I genuinely do appreciate you taking the time to try and explain your points, try to explain the opposition to me. I genuinely understand the desire for a real, in-depth takedown of my perspectives. I appreciate that a lot. I love having, really detailed, in-depth, back and forth disagreements with people. I think that's how all of us as people grow and have better, stronger perspectives. But what I don't appreciate is the blatant mischaracterization that you're going to be taking part in here, the blatant defending of anti-consumer practices that you're going to be doing, and then the characterization of me as just being someone who doesn't understand. Those three things are what's getting you a video. Okay? I don't know why I did that. Okay, let's start. I want to make posts regarding Steam and their competitors and why they don't make as much of an impact compared to Steam. It's mainly because of the games, and a lot of games released on PC are only available to buy on Steam. Which, full stop, is a kind of a misconception in itself. You could say that they're only available to buy, start and end on Steam, but even then you have to consider things like key marketplaces. The fact that Steam isn't the only place where you can buy Steam games is what I'm getting at. Just because the game is only available on Steam doesn't mean you can only buy the game on Steam. But even then, more and more games are starting to be released on places like GOG. Storefronts that, aren't nearly as popular or successful as Steam, but still have very passionate, very healthy followings, very healthy consumer bases. The thread continues. Let's go back to December 6th, 2018. Good God, it was that long ago. Sheesh. where Steam's major competitor, Epic Games Store, is released. Calling them a major competitor at this point is a little laughable, but that's just... there I go again, being an Epic Games Store hater. And that's where first main problems started back then. Exclusivity. Games like Metro Exodus, Phoenix Point, Shenmue 3, and other games like Epic's published titles like Alan Wake 2. It's a very strange spread there, and again, just right out of the gate, you're mischaracterizing things. The problem with the initial exclusivity was the fact that Epic Games had not proven themselves, and yet they were trying to buy their way into the winner's circle. Not only that, but there were people who had already pre-ordered Metro Exodus on Steam, so the people who were the most excited for this game, that they were willing to pay early for it, were now essentially being told that their support can fuck itself, but also you are grossly mischaracterizing the game selection here. You say that the problem started with these exclusive games like Metro Exodus, Phoenix Point, Shenmue, yes, but then also Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 didn't come out for like 5 years after this. So why are you sorting it here with the beginning? Thread continues. Are released exclusively on the Epic Games Store. Some are timed exclusive, and that caused a lot of backlash and meta reactions from PC gamers. And why is that? It's mainly because Epic Games Store back then has less features compared to what Steam has. And then they attach this really big chart of features that the two storefronts, yes or no, have. And I'm going to leave this on screen because the point seems to be flying over your head here. This in itself could, and for a lot of people, was the end of the conversation. Because look at this chart of features that Steam has and Epic Games does not. And it's not just like features here. There's also OS support in here, which is kind of a major one. I can't support the Epic Games Store if I'm using an operating system that Epic Games couldn't be fucked to support. Like that's not a feature. That's just basic functionality. This is in itself more than enough of a justification to not support Epic Games, especially if they're paying for exclusivity of a game you did care about. Let's say you cared about a certain game that was going to come out. We'll use Metro Exodus. Since you brought up Metro Exodus, we'll just use that's just a good example. You're excited for Metro Exodus. You pre-order it on Steam, or maybe you don't pre-order on Steam, you're just planning to buy it on Steam, either way. But then Epic Games comes along, says you can't play Metro Exodus unless you get it on the Epic Games Store. Same price point, so it's not actually a benefit to you as a consumer. You're paying the same amount of money for it, but you have to use it on the Epic Games Store. You have to use the Epic Games launcher, which is, buggy and slow and unoptimized compared to Steam. So you have a buggy, slow, unoptimized launcher that's not actually saving you any money, and then on top of that, this giant chart of features that the Epic Games Store does not have. This, in itself, is so utterly disrespectful to the consumer. It's not just a matter of features that one has and one doesn't. It's not just a matter of convenience. It's a matter of consumer respect. I'm just going to keep saying it. This, in itself, is more than enough to kill your support from PC gamers because this is utterly disrespectful to them. You know what they want from their PC storefronts. Steam has been doing it for years. You know what they want from you. You are perfectly capable of giving it to them because none of these things that Steam has, none of these features that Steam has in the Epic Games Store doesn't, none of these things are like copyrighted. None of them are proprietary. They're just basic quality of life features that you chose not to put in your storefront. Why would I give you my money? You're looking at this from the wrong perspective. You're asking the question of why aren't PC gamers willing to give Epic Games the money instead of Valve? You're asking why aren't they giving them the money? I'm asking why should I give them the money? What benefit is there to me as the consumer to buy it from Epic instead of Valve? What do I get out of that? Because from what you are laying out here, it seems like I am objectively getting a whole lot less for the same amount of money. Why would I do that? The thread continues. The only benefit Epic has for devs is the 8812 revenue cut. Recently, Epic has reduced the fees to 0 for a game's first 1 million in annual sales, and only benefit for gamers is the weekly free games. I was against the Epic Games Store exclusivity deals back then, but looking at PC games only being released on Steam, I can understand this business practice. I think that Epic Games knows that they can't just rely on its features alone to carry their storefront. No, again, you're missing the point here. Epic Games could implement, and this is something that I bring up in all of my videos, this is why it frustrates me that you said I don't understand. Everything that Epic Games Store doesn't have, but Steam does have, all of those things are things that Epic could implement tomorrow. They are choosing not to. And again, we go back to the topic of consumer respect. Why would I want to patron a company that openly does not give me what it knows I want? Why would I support that company? What is in it for me? The thread continues. Many PC gamers only gravitate towards Steam, not just because of its features it has, but because of the games that are only released on that storefront over time, so Steam has a massive advantage over their competitors. And why are games only released on Steam? Why are so many PC games choosing only to release on Steam? Again, you're asking the wrong questions here. You're asking, well, why aren't games releasing on the Epic Games Store? Well, why would they? Why would they do that? What is in it for them? Because based on the landscape that Epic Games has made for themselves, there doesn't seem to be much of an advantage. Epic Games has created a situation where their storefront is so absolutely barren and their launcher is so utterly unoptimized and undesirable that the only reason people are, by Epic's own admission, the only reason a lot of people are even on their storefront and in their ecosystem is to grab the free games. So now you put yourself in the shoes of a publisher. Why would they even bother releasing on the Epic Games Store? What's the point? I mean, Epic Games has destroyed their reputation with PC gamers, and it's not like the Epic Games Store is just flowing with paying customers. Why would they even bother with an Epic Games Store release? Why wouldn't they just throw the game up on Steam where everyone is anyways? And also, the misrepresentation here is a little frustrating. You say that games only release, all these games are only releasing on Steam, so many games only release on Steam, but by only release on Steam, you seem to mean Steam and not Epic Games Store. There are lots of games that release on Steam and GOG, Steam and other PC storefronts. But if it doesn't release on the Epic Games Store, now it's a problem. Now it's an issue of Steam exclusivity somehow. The thread continues. And also there's a lawsuit being made against Valve for their anti-competitive conduct. First, Wolfire Games sued Valve because they are not allowing the dev to release their game Overgrowth at a lower price on the other PC gaming storefront. Then other folks got involved and filed a class action lawsuit against Valve for monopolizing PC game distribution through their anti-competitive practices by enforcing their PMFN, not letting publishers to sell games on other storefronts at lower price than what is on Steam. What that means for devs and publishers that release their games on Steam, EGS, and even GOG is that prices has to be the same on those storefronts, meaning that PC gamers won't benefit from lower prices on EGS because of its revenue cut. Now, there's a few moving parts here, and I don't mean to sound like a Valve fanboy here, because obviously Valve is not blameless in these things. Valve absolutely makes mistakes. I'm not talking about those mistakes because, frankly, if you wanted to talk about those mistakes and you wanted to make Valve seem bad or seem like the villain here, you're not choosing great examples of it because you bring up this lawsuit, a class action lawsuit from 2021, by the way. The link that you include here is from May of 2021, and what it pertains to is, yes, like you said, the idea that Valve does not allow games to be released on Steam and then sold at a lower market price on other storefronts. What you are seeing here is basic economics and basic competition, the exact kind of competition that Epic is refusing to engage with. Valve demands that if a game is released on Steam, the market price has to be the same or higher on other storefronts. So you can't release a game at $50 market price on Steam and then $40 market price on the Epic Games Store. That doesn't mean you can't put the game on sale on other storefronts. And frankly, I think that's a major reason why Valve does this, is because Valve knows how much mileage they get out of sales. So if they have the lowest market price and then also they have things on sale, you're basically always going to get the lowest price for the game on Steam. At best, you'll get the same price on Steam. And if the games are the same price on Steam, then it really is just a question of, would you rather buy the game through Steam or through the Epic Games Store? And that is not a competition that Epic Games can win. And why can't Epic Games win that competition? Because they are choosing not to follow through on what the consumer wants. Like, you're trying to portray this as some great evil, or this horribly monopolistic practice that Valve is just insisting in its contracts that it doesn't get undercut on competing storefronts. Which, yeah, you can argue that that's not like a great thing to do. You could argue that's kind of a petty thing to do. But at the end of the day, I don't see the issue with that. Because if a game is being sold at the same price on Steam and on the Epic Games Store, well, then it's really just up to the consumer to decide which version of the game they're getting like a better product for. Because the launcher and the storefront and the ecosystem are parts of the product. $60 for this game on Steam or $60 for this game on EGS. Which one is a better product? Well, it's going to be the Steam version. And if Epic Games has a problem with that, maybe they should fix their fucking storefront. Now, you could say this is a problem because, Steam takes a higher cut of game sales than EGS does. So if the intention was for the game developer or the publisher to get a larger cut of each sale, and then that those savings, or I guess those increased profits, means the game can be sold at a lower price on the Epic Games Store, well, now contractually that can't happen because Steam doesn't let them sell it at a lower cost. Well, okay, sell the game at a lower price on both storefronts then. Like, I'm just spitballing here. But also, and more importantly, the thing that I really resent about this argument is this idea that if Steam, and again, I'm not defending Steam's thing here. I'm not defending Steam, but I am going to point out that there's this idea that if Steam didn't have this clause in their contract, if Steam didn't demand to have the lowest price available, then that means games on the Epic Games Store would be cheaper than they otherwise are. But there's just no evidence to that. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary. Because let's look at some multi-platform games that released exclusively on the Epic Games Store. So Steam wasn't even part of the picture here. Because for a long time, Ubisoft was exclusive to the Epic Games Store. So you would think that the PC version of Ubisoft games would be cheaper than the standard $60 or $70. But no, they were the same price as they were before. Okay, well, maybe not Ubisoft. What are some other big games that have come out that were Epic Store exclusive on PC? There was Shenmue 3. Oh, that was $60. There was Dead Island 2. Oh, that was $60. You see what I mean here? You're suggesting that if Steam were out of the question, if Steam's insistence on having the lowest market price was not part of the deal, if that wasn't a thing, then games across the Epic Games Store would just be so much cheaper and those savings would be passed on to the consumer. But that's just not true. Steam has been cut out of the equation for many big name releases, and those savings were absolutely not passed on to the consumer. They never were. So you can argue that theoretically, these savings would be passed on to the consumer if Steam didn't insist on having the lowest cost. But the fact of the matter is, you simply cannot rely on that. Because there have been many instances where they should have been passed on to the consumer and simply were not. But let's just continue this thread. Let's look at Alan Wake 2 being released on EGS. The game's price there is $50, whereas the console versions are $60. If this was released on Steam alongside EGS, then you would have to pay $60 for the PC version of that game. Full stop. No, you would not. No, you would not. PC ports of multi-platform games come out all the time at cheaper than the console versions on Steam. Have you not been paying attention? This is what I mean when I say you don't understand the conversation here and you don't understand the points you're trying to make. Valve demands the cheapest PC version. There have been plenty of multi-platform games that come out on Steam at $10 less than the console version. What is this idea that the Steam version would have matched the console version? No, it would not have. When has that ever been the case? When has that ever been a universal thing? $70 games only just recently came to Steam. Thanks for that one, by the way, console dudes. Really appreciate you normalizing that. If Valve doesn't have a PMFN, then we can see the game being released on Steam for $60, being released on EGS for $50 or even $45 to $40 because of EGS 8812 revenue cut, meaning the PC gamers would have benefited from this. Again, full stop. They've tried that, And no, we didn't. And this is something that YouTubers like Joe from Seattle don't understand. They don't ever mention the main reason why PC gamers stick to Steam in the first place, because this is inconvenient for them, because this means they have to acknowledge that games are the main reason. You just have not watched my videos, I guess, because I feel like everything I've said in this video is me repeating myself. I feel like I've made all these points very clear. I've been incredibly consistent on this. Joe from Seattle also attacks folks who he calls Epic fanboys for saying Steam is a monopoly, says that Steam is not a monopoly, but doesn't mention that PC games released on Steam are the main reason why PC gamers stick to it, and lawsuits regarding monopolistic practices. That's the other thing. Oh, there's lawsuits regarding monopolistic practices. Okay, did the lawsuits go anywhere? Did they prove monopolistic practices? Or is Epic Games just really bad at competing? You have to ask yourself these things. I can file a lawsuit for any reason. I can file a lawsuit about anything. That doesn't mean the thing that I filed the lawsuit over is now true, or that I'm in the right simply because I filed a lawsuit. If anyone who is reading this, including you, Joe from Seattle, while I understand the criticisms of Epic Game Store exclusivity back then, a lot of games on... Again, you keep saying back then. Exclusivity back then. If you want to talk about back then, why do you keep bringing up Alan Wake 2? If you want to make good points and act like I'm the one who doesn't understand, a minute amount of research would be appreciated. Because you're just pissing me off even more now that you're even trying to act like I'm misrepresenting things or not understanding things here, when the point is just flying over your head over and over again. A lot of games on PC only being available to buy on Steam makes it more understandable why Epic Games want to go with exclusivity deals. You can't just rely on features alone to carry your storefront. You need to have games that gamers will buy, and a lot of PC games are being released only on Steam. Thank you anyone for reading my Twitter thread. Again, ask yourself why. Games are only being released on Steam. Why is that? A lot of games aren't bothering to release on the Epic Games Store. Why is that happening? And why would they want to? What is to be gained from putting in that extra work into an EGS release? Oh, because no one would buy the game on EGS. Okay. Whose fault is that? Epic. It's their fault. Not the PC gamer's fault. Not Valve's fault. It's Epic's fault. Every problem with the Epic Games Store is entirely of their own making. That's why I make fun of them. Because it's funny. And look, again, I appreciate the effort here. I really do appreciate the effort here. This is more effort than most people put into their arguments against me. But I just wish this effort wasn't so misplaced. I wish you did a little bit more research before putting in this effort. Because, dudester guy, you're just fucking wrong. You were wrong for a really long period of time. You're still wrong, though, okay? If you want the Epic Games Store to do better, maybe they should just do better. The exclusivity thing isn't going to suddenly start working just because they want it to work really hard. It didn't work before, so let's just keep trying and change nothing about our tactics, and then eventually it'll work, maybe, kind of. Joe from Seattle doesn't understand this thing. He doesn't understand that if they just keep doing the thing that doesn't work, eventually it'll work and be okay. Because someone filed a lawsuit against Valve 4 years ago. Like, really? That's the best you got? Ugh, anyway. Pre-recorded Doofus Club time because I'm out of town. Toodles. Hello there, dear viewer. I'm currently out of town. I want to do the Doofus Club, instead I have to frown. The 7th of July is when I will return. You have until that date to make your name a burn. I summon you, O Doofus, to change your silly name, so when I record the next end credits, I have but myself to blame. Fart Nugget Poopy Spit Sack. Adam Raz 26, Max Killer V2 Gaming, Kyle Ward 789, Nate Blast 1314, Jimmy Chops, Mom Close the Door, I'm Goonie, Michael Musial, Master Killer, Firestorm 2056, Demetrius Papagiorno, Showbiz NCNA, Banshee, Tom Schnorlax, and N Omega Moltheme, Dan Porterbridge, Dan Porterbridge is One Man Savage, Binary Deviant, Oracle, Unknown 186718, Kev Dog 1992, Joe from Furcon, Official Dregs, Mash Star, No Mom, It's Mine, I'll watch it as fast as I want, Bear Brain, Epion 504, Grimsy, Edge Knight 1789, The Caffeine Addict, Corporal Dixon, Kushka, Unicorn Rocco, El Antigrievous 2005, Better Fondue, Ass Shitter 69 420 Remastered Poopy Edition, Look, Listen, Appearing Offline does not fucking stop it, Tom from Spokane, Raisinger, Sense Nakaka, and Non-Volod, Tickle Biddies, Partial Mean 8, Nick, Volksalto, JJ Dusty, Held a Nuva, Cloud Stop It, Codman 4372WX, I need a stupid name for Joe to read out loud for everyone to see, Celerock, Gold Pyrac, Alderoth 01, I pay for this with a stolen elderly woman's card, Doug Nixie Smile, Snake Eyes 327, Devastator 2000, Joe, please let us touch it, Tip, you, Joe, please let us touch it, you sexy man, MK2396, EM still on the moat. Joe, please get help. Hentai X, Machina Gamma, Elite Wolf, Fire Hazard 105, Plato Penguin, GWXSS, Rast the Wolf, Emiko, Oki Toodles, Jack Gaming, Jungle Zone, Slim Jim, Really Zerg, Gaming with the People, All Games Video, Japanese name that says, oh no, Joe is out of town, however will I goon with myself. Todd Howard is our Lord and Savior, Chris Void, Pope Ralph on the Rat King, Jessica Spiral, Jessica Shepard, Riki Spiral, Riki Tiki Tabby, Muskie, that video was not funny, Joe, you should cut that, Grimmy the Steel Angel, Nintendo and PlayStation Fanboy Civil War is coming, Jason Jason Bond, Baron Von Vaderham, Cyrus 6771, don't call me Doofus, it hurts my feelings, True Text 940, I'm Joe's phone, text notification, ding.mp4, the first Doofus, Creed Warrior 23, Max Chev, Chap is going away for a while, take care for now, Totally Insane, Vedota Autry, Black Cobra, the Anwa Slayer, Night of Cypher, and ML04, I own 6 cards that click 2006 on Blu-ray, oh no, it's a bald Banana Man, Wolf of Midnight, Stick Rider, Pig Venus, Sequence Studios, Film McCracken, Ohm Gaming, Tariq Brown, Thorn Scanning, Back and Neck, Severin Evans, Sonny 03, Scalina Frickle, Y Mixer, Pow Pow, White Trouble, Donnie Weston, Nick Donegan, Draws Max on Twitch, Come Hang Y'all, Gov Gosson, Rogue Winter 919, Bobby Hinner, Kenny Kitten Fanny, Hangman for Hire, Elden Noble, Frost Crystal, Biogenesis, Ian in Action, Pump Pinkus 97, Mega Keys, Crevice Go, Ghost Ho, Rias, Agony Jojo 6, Vast Girl, Raptor, Tim the Amazing Blight Man, Blue Hook, Jeff from Portland, I'm using my Steam Deck as my main PC, nice, Jody Breeze, Smitty Worker, Jägerman Jensen, Max Lorel Cholo, Zord, Big Advertisement, Diego Garcia, JJ Dusty, A. My Kimmikins, I American Idiot, Darth Muffin, I don't know, it's Justin, Randroid, Twin Women, Mechanical Raisins, and 6 Stream the Wolf 7, Joey Scoops, Negative Taku, Joe, no, Negative Creep, Joe Taku, Poop P Bang, Cat Chicken Sucker, Mom Banger 8008, Wannabe Hobo Jidge, Westabilla 310 Char, Rub C, Veg, Groovy Banana, Curd, now it's back to Scrum Master Scroll with the gun, makes my pee nuts go pew pew. You're stuck with that shitty ass reading for the next, week. Okay, toodles.